right, now let's talk about staccato playing. Staccato is kind of the opposite of legato, whereas legato is more about sustainy, longer notes. Staccato is about much shorter notes, and they're typically played, you know, when it comes to the guitar, they're typically played in a way that involves a lot of muting. So we're gonna get into that, and we're gonna use just a simple, you know, little framework that we know. Let's say like A minor pentatonic, right? So if we were to just use the actual scale pattern, but just play the notes in a way that was staccato, you know, it would look something like this. So normally, when we play through it, you know, just like, right? If we were to do it like this, a little different, right? Same exact notes, but it's in how we played it that kind of changed the vibe. So what was happening was I was essentially playing each note and then just choking it right after I play it. So it stops, then. And so what I'm kind of doing with my picking hand is I'll pick the note and then just kind of rest my palm on the string. And it'll just kind of be like this two-move thing where it's like pick, mute, pick, mute, pick, mute, pick, mute with each one. And then that's essentially how I get that staccato sound. So it's not palm muting per se, where it's like, right? That's a form of staccato playing too, because you're deadening the note with your palm. And you're essentially doing the same thing the other way, but we're just playing it and then muting it as opposed to playing it while it's being muted, if that makes sense, right? So if we were to just walk up the scale, then that's essentially how we do it. That is staccato playing. So if you're playing like a sustainy, like emotional blues solo, you know, and you want to add some staccato to it, so one thing you can do is actually shorten the duration of some of those bends where you're going, as opposed to, you're going, preceding those bends and going into the bend, you're staccatoing pretty much every note. So if we're right here, right, we're on the 8th fret of the B string to the 10th fret, this little box here in A minor pentatonic, 8th fret, 10th fret on B, 8th fret, 10th fret on high E, you know, if you're gonna slide in, do something like that, but if you want to staccato it, and having a little slapback delay is nice too. You know, it really accentuates that staccato-y kind of sound. Even kind of sounds like a little rockabilly, you know? So when you're doing something like that, as opposed to, it adds a nice little bit of flavor and you're not having to change too much. You're not changing any of the notes, right? It's more just in the way that you're playing them. Personally, I love doing little staccato runs like that because they're just like, I don't know, they captivate me. When I hear guitar players do that, I just love that. It's awesome, you know, especially when it's something that's like the band's like really broken down and getting quiet, you know, and it's like, all these little pauses and that, like leaving all that space in between the notes is kind of an advantage, you know, it works in your favor when you're employing the staccato stuff. So it's something that you don't have to, you don't have to redefine how you play, you know, or I mean, what you normally play. You can just change a little bit in how you play it. So it doesn't have to be blues, it can be anything. If you're like a shoegaze kind of player, you know, you can add little like, especially great when you're using time-based effects like delay and stuff, when you're doing a staccato, you know, especially if you're doing like, let's say like arpeggiated kind of chords, you know, like, you know, where it's like kind of palm muted, but as opposed to like, it's just a new dynamic, you know, and dynamics are everything. Like there's something that like you always want to keep in mind. It's not something you really want to turn off. You know, your fretting hand can be doing the same exact thing, but all the dynamics are really in your picking hand, you know? And so you can change something like, you know, a little more legato and then just kind of, and it just gives it a different mood even though the notes are exactly the same. So take something that you normally love to play and then just apply some staccato to it and see what it does. It may not work at all. And if it doesn't, now you know, right? But if it does work, if it kind of makes your ears perk up a little bit and you're like, it's kind of interesting, I like that. and it inspires even more ideas. You know, I mean, that's how the musical creative process should be. And it doesn't require, you know, lightning in a bottle, right? Where it's like just you got to wait for inspiration to strike. You can just like take what you already do, approach it a little differently, and then totally get inspired just by doing that. So when you're doing it, just remember those two moves. You're picking and then immediately after you're muting. So if we're picking a note, right? We pick it and then we mute it. So the motion of my picking hand is pick and then mute. So it's like I pick the note and I release my hand a little bit to give it the room just for a brief moment and then bring down my palm. So it's like you're doing two moves per, let's say, note that you're playing, right? So it's pick, mute, pick, mute, pick, mute, pick, mute, pick, mute, pick, mute. So just get used to that. Start it with single note runs, even if it's like running a scale or something, and then just get used to that. And then start peppering it in to, like, you know, if let's say you're like, you love playing minor pentatonic stuff, you know, you want to throw in some staccato. You can do like, you know, little things like that. They just really make it interesting. And not doing anything groundbreaking as far as what notes I'm playing, you know, just all within the minor pentatonic boxes, and just changing what my picking hand is doing is giving it that kind of new level of intrigue. So that's just a way that you can actually get more mileage out of what you already know and do, just by changing up how you use your picking hand with it. Now, what I recommend you do to get comfortable with this technique fairly quickly is to throw on a backing track, any backing track you want, and play the entire solo, right? The entire duration of your soloing over that backing track, only in staccato playing. Now, it may not sound amazing the entire time, but the point is you're putting in the work to get comfortable, with actually using that technique. And another thing is you're gonna take mental inventory of what moments over that backing track staccato playing seem to really pop out and really like come through in the way that you intended. And that way you can remember that for the future, next time you throw on another backing track, or if you're jamming with a buddy or recording music at home, you already have in your head like, okay, I remember at certain moments, you know, in a song, that staccato playing tends to pop out a little bit more, and that's when I'll use it. So it's like you're kind of mining for intel when you're putting yourself through the process of getting comfortable with the technique.